Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to talk about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss how the Republican state of Florida is grappling with the economic problems of deporting so many foreign-born workers. They're just going to send kiddies to work in their place. But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So, ahead of the election, Trump had promised mass deportations. We can't say we're surprised. The way it was pitched to the American public is a crackdown on those who have no lawful right to live or work in America, so it seems perfectly reasonable to much of the population. However, this crackdown has been extending beyond that remit. People have been deported and are in the process of being deported where the federal authorities have absolutely no evidence of them being illegal migrants. In fact, Trump's government have explicitly said, they've openly said it, they will deport whether or not they have evidence. And actually, they've gone further and said, if we don't have evidence, it must mean you're a terrorist. So basically, if you're not a US citizen, but you are living in America, the federal government may deport you. If you aren't able to prove you have the legal right to remain, they will deport you as an illegal alien. If you do have the legal right to remain, they will deport you as a terrorist. But of course, this is going to play merry hell with the economy. Frankly, even deporting those who genuinely are illegal immigrants will kick 9 bells out of the economy, because America has sort of turned a bit of a blind eye to the practice for quite a long time and taken advantage of the cheap labour with workers who won't complain about their treatment for fear of being deported. So plenty of US businesses and state economies will suffer with anything other than a carefully phased crackdown. Carefully phased are not words used with Trump's government. And if the federal authorities are going to deport even legal migrants, some of whom are very high value workers, then the economy is knackered. But Florida seems to have come up with a novel approach which kills 2 birds with 1 stone, if you're a MAGA nut. Reports suggest that Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has talked about the way it's been described as loosening child labour laws. One of the specific proposals is to allow some 14-year-olds to be allowed to work overnight during the school week. So Florida's plan is to replace migrant workers with children. And to even do so during school weeks, which kills 2 birds with 1 stone, first, they get to compensate for their immigration policies. Second, they make it harder for the next generation to get an education. Now, as with all far-right nut jobs, tends not to be the educated who vote them into power. The far right in particular always attack education and academics because they do not want a population capable of self-learning, personal agency, or critical thinking. In fact, if you consider the worries that a lot of people have about AI, that's the attitude Republicans have about people. And will Floridans actually go along with this? Allow those in their mid-teens at a crucial stage of their universal education to be made to go without sleep the night before school just to plug gaps left by Trump's ham-fisted approach to immigration? I'm guessing they will. Reports suggest that Trump's immigration crackdown really has kicked the shit out of Florida's economy. The bill would, according to reports, first of all remove restrictions on 16 and 17-year-olds working between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. the following morning. It would also remove the restrictions on working more than 8 hours Monday to Friday. It would also abolish the law requiring pupils work no more than 30 hours a week. And in what is surely just an act of spite, would remove their right to 30-minute meal breaks during 8-hour shifts. Children who are 14 or 15 would also be removed from these legal protections if they're, say, homeschooled or employed by their parents or working domestic service for posh Republicans. Few other factors as well. The bill has already passed the first hurdle, although the vote was said to be close, has to go through a few other stages to pass into law. DeSantis has tried to justify this horrific bill by saying, well, what's wrong with young people working part-time? But this is completely disingenuous because the law already allows them to work part-time. This bill means making them work full-time without meal breaks in a full-day shift. In fact, actually 8 hours, I mean, different countries. Like in this country, we tend to regard, it's more like about 7.2 hours or something is full-time. So, and this at a time when they're supposed to be at school. Like, how is a kid supposed to concentrate in class if they've been working the entire night before, or study if they're working full-time hours outside of the school hours. They're not going to, are they? Then a lot of them aren't even going to be able to turn up to school, are they? They're going to be asleep. If Florida needs children to support its economy to replace migrant workers, then what is it proving? It's proving that Florida needs migrant workers. But this is a classic case of horrific behaviour that will work in the interests of those behind it, Republicans, especially MAGA Republicans. You know, you're forcing kids at school into work, so you destroy their education. You destroy their education, and they are therefore more susceptible to extreme political ideologies and fake news. So at a stroke, Republicans in Florida at least partially solve the economic problems. I mentioned this in a post earlier today, and people have made the very good point that Florida, like a lot of other parts of the Western world, is having a bit of a population decline. So they're not actually going to be able to replace all the migrant workers just with kids. But nonetheless, it's helping to patch up some of their economic problems that they have caused. And it also stacks the odds more in their favour of remaining in power for the long term because they absolutely rely upon the votes of the uneducated. And it also helps to keep a lid on social mobility because well-off kids will not be doing this work. They'll still get their education. You know, your middle-class kids, they'll still get their education. But they will have less competition for the good jobs from the poor kids who will be too overworked to get decent qualifications. Absolutely great for Republicans. One act of evil leading to another. Abhorrent. And a vision of what would happen here if we ever allowed a Reform UK Tory merger to win power in this country. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.